Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my card making space, and a real-time video. Usually, the majority of my videos are edited down, sped up, etc., and then I do my lives on Sunday at 2 p.m. Central. And yeah, I think I've only posted maybe one or two like real-time videos where I just talk y'all through the process in real time. Thought I would try that with this card. So first off, everything I use for today's card will be listed and linked in the description box below the video. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and end up placing an order, I do get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. That is what helps pay the bills, keeps the lights on, enables me to keep bringing out content. And I am going to do just a mix of oldie but goodie plus new products from Simon Says Stamp. As of filming this intro part, I have a rough idea in my head of where this is going to go. So we're just going to see. So I'll edit in at this point the finished card, and then we'll get into actually making it. Alrighty, here we go. I have this. This is an older stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. This is the Tropical Silhouette set, which I'm pretty sure they're going to discontinue. I have had this set for years. I'm honestly not even sure if I've ever used it, but I have the set. And then I've got, this is just some Neenah Desert Storm cardstock. And I'm also going to take off my face because you guys don't need to see that. You just don't. So, got that. And then I have the stamps. And I want to stamp this background with these great big like leaf images here. And I am not worried about this stamping perfectly or anything like that. I'm using kind of my grip mat in my MISTI, and I'm just using the line right there just to kind of juke. And then yeah, I'm not worried about this stamping like perfectly or anything like that. This is going to be the background, and I think I'm going to stamp another background stamp over this. So I've got a selection of just greens in Oxide inks, because Oxide inks on Desert Storm cardstock, or like craft cardstock, dark cardstock in general. Love. You know, just, I don't know what it is. I like the look of it. So I will have the specific colors and everything listed, but that was Mowed Lawn. Let's do some Rustic Wilderness. Haven't used my oxides in a while, so that was another reason why I thought I should pull them out, because it's been a minute since I have played with them. So I'm just gonna, and since these stamps technically, like I said, this set came out years ago, I've had it sitting here. I don't think I've ever actually even used it. So these stamps are technically like brand new. So I'm going to stamp just this background. And I'm gonna, my plan is also to like kind of overlap some of these images as well. So we'll get that one out of the way. Let's get this one out of the way. Let's put this one up like that. Let's take another one from the set. Could go like this. And then we've got like these big ones as well. Let's put one there. Since everything's kind of separated for right now, I was trying to like think of the word. I can kind of do whatever I want, really. Let's put one right there. And that's good for the moment. So then, same thing. I'm just rubbing my hands. Since when you've got new stamps, I've shown this in videos. When a photopolymer stamp is brand new, apologies for that squeaky sound if it drives you nuts. When a photopolymer stamp is brand new, there is kind of almost like a coating. So you can use your hands. That's what I do most of the time. There are like erasers meant, and you can use even just a white eraser. Don't use a sanding block, please. I beg you. Do not use a sanding block. Because you could literally damage your stamps doing that. But just rubbing it with your hands or with a white eraser, cleaning it vigorously, using things like Versamark, like a sticky ink, and stamping it, or just stamping it multiple times on scrap paper. That works too. Basically, the more you use a stamp, the better it takes ink. Because some of my most used stamps, which, you know, I've done like tons and tons of videos on, and I've used them to the point where, you know, they're stained black and all that, they stamp wonderfully. Okay. Not bad. Now I just have to remember what color these. Okay, these were Lucky Clover. So we'll just ink it up. And even though I said, like, it doesn't need to be stamped perfectly, I'm still going to, like, put the effort in, though, to get it to stamp somewhat decently. That was Mowed lawn. There we go. Yes, that's good enough for me. And then wipe them off. Okay, so you get the gist of it. I will be back in a second with all of my leaves like stamped how I want them. Okay, I have stamped my background with all those different colors of green. I just kept moving the stamps around and then stamping them. And then I've got this Swiss Dots background set. Kind of love this. You get the Swiss Dot background stamp, which this one I have a feeling I'm going to be using quite a lot because, you know, basic, simple dot pattern, must. And then there's sentiments with it. Love it. Love it. Oop, and I'm knocking everything over. Okay, so I'm going to line this up just like so. And then I am going to ink up my stamp. Just going to make sure I don't have any ink on there. I'm going to just ink this up with a white pigment ink. So this will add some pattern to this background. And just kind of layer on top. There we go. And then just make sure I get the whole thing. Yes. Love it. Okay, on to the next step. Okay, I have done some die cutting, and I used another couple oldie but goodie faves. This is the Tropical Leaf Bunch, came out a few years ago, and MILO, I don't remember how it's supposed to be pronounced, Toucan. And I've done a video using these, if I remember. I'll link to them in the video at the end screen, in the end of the video. And I've die cut these pieces from watercolor paper because we're going to do some very, very simple watercoloring. So, don't know why. There's something therapeutic about throwing my wafer dies on my work surface, and it works to just remove the die cut from the wafer die. And then I am sticking these. This is my Stampin' Stencil mat. This is sticky. I've shown this in a bunch of videos. I've talked about it. So here it is in real time in all its glory. It comes with a low tack adhesive on this. And it's going to stain. As you can see, mine is stained. It's clean, but it's stained. And I like this specifically when I'm doing exactly what I'm going to do, which is sticking die cuts to it to watercolor. My photopolymer grip mats work great as well, but this just holds it just a smidge better when I'm watercoloring, because the photopolymer, when these are sitting there and I'm watercoloring, the water immediately gets under and they don't stay in place like at all. This just gives that little extra. And then when I'm done watercoloring, I take the pieces off and I rinse this under the sink. I don't scrub it, don't use it like soap or anything like that. I know Brutus Monroe, who makes this for Simon Says Stamp, there is a cleaner mint for these. I have it. I've never used it. I just rinse this under the sink after I've taken everything off. Again, it's going to stain. Don't worry about it. And then I let it air dry. And that's it. That's all. That's it, folks. You know, just simple. So I've got my die cut pieces. And I'm actually going to kind of place them. I've got the packaging here off to the side. Because then, you know, to know what piece, what are we doing here? You know, what piece is what? So this is part of his tail. So I'm going to stick that there. There's another piece in this die set. So I'm going to adhere everything on top. So I've got that just sitting there. And then, okay, that'll be part of his face. This is his little, like, cheek. And then we've got sort of this little eye piece. And then these are all parts of his beak. Like so. Perfection. Okay. So we got all those. I don't need the background piece because that's just going to sit. And then for the watercoloring, I'm going to use the same oxides or like oxide ink pad. So I'm going to use the Lucky Clover for these pieces. And maybe a little pine needles too. Why not? Why not? So smushing those onto just my little plastic palette, any non-porous surface will work. I could even smush ink directly onto my glass, but the reason I don't do that is because I'm messy. You know, I'm messy. I'm gonna make a mess. It's not gonna be pretty. So I've got fossilized amber. I pulled out a little bit of blueprint sketch. I don't need much for these smaller pieces, really. Black soot. I need a little bit more of that. Seedless preserves, just a smidge. And then I've also got some twisted citron. Yeah, that should be good. Okay, and then for my watercoloring, I'm just using my go-to little Tim Holtz detail water brush. Same one I've been using for a bajillion years. I've got a cloth here to wipe my brush off in between colors. And then my brush is ready to go. Swirl it and paint. And I am not worried about anything at the moment because all we want to do is cover these die cuts with color. And I've been talking about this a lot lately because I've been doing a lot of die cut cards, like pretty much all die cuts. I love die cutting watercolor paper and then coloring with whether it's inks or actual watercolors, whatever. I find it to be really easy and kind of therapeutic, and I can't stress it enough how much I recommend trying it out. Okay, back at it. So this is dried when I got interrupted, which is fine because I can just keep going. Oxides are super forgiving. And like I always say, any water reactive ink will work. You know, I've done a bunch lately with Simon Says Stamps Positively Saturated inks, Stress inks, etc., etc. The difference with oxides, because they are a unique formula, is even like right here. You can kind of see is when oxides are introduced to water, they'll just do different things. Sometimes different colors will pop out depending on what the formula of that color is. And they're like Tim Holtz says, they're creamy dreamy. They totally are. And they're also just forgiving. So, as y'all can see, I am not doing anything special. Like, I'm just slapping that color on. And it's going to look great. So, I can't recommend it enough. If you've got dyes that of any sort, because like I've done this with greenery, florals, we're going to do it with this little toucan, you know, bird dyes, like pretty much anything. Die cut them from some watercolor paper and then add color, whether it be a water reactive ink or an actual watercolor, any of it, you know. You get so much texture this way and it's just fun. So now I'm going to go in with this darker shade, which was, I was using Lucky Clover, and now I've just got a bit of pine needles. And I'm just, again, just kind of sort of keeping it more towards like the center of these leaves, but also trying not to overthink it too much. Just let it do its thing, and then just let it dry. That's it. That's it. That's how simple it is. Okay. So then I wipe off my little brush, get all the color off of it, and then for my little toucan, we're basically just literally going to do the exact same thing. I'm painting on the different colors. I Googled images of toucans. They are super bright, you know, and you can kind of do whatever you want, which is another thing I love. But also, and I've said this before, when it comes specifically to like birds, is just don't overthink it. I don't worry about it too much. I used to get way, way, way in my head, way too much with bird, and that was why I wouldn't use bird stamps. I didn't like using bird dyes because I was like, I don't know enough about birds, you know, and was worried that, you know, people would get so upset if I didn't do like the right colors or, you know, make it look realistic. It's paper. It's a card. It's paper. And like I've said before, if you give a card to someone and they're like, wow, those colors are not realistic to whatever it is, don't give them another one. Seriously, don't. Just don't give them another one. They don't deserve another card. I forgot. I'm going to do this pink. So let's grab my favorite pink, which is picked raspberry, just a corner. Barely need any. So add a little bit of that. But yeah, try not to get too hung up on it. And I say that as someone who overthinks everything and has a hard time getting out of my own head. But it's true. Oh, and then the blueprint sketch I wanted to do for his tail, just to give it another pop of color. Okay. So, that's it. That's it. That's how simple this is. And then, depending on your mat and what you're using, mine has been used a lot. It's not near as sticky as it is originally. So, and these pieces I'm comfortable with. But again, depending on your mat, depending on what you're using, like in this case, like if the pieces are already like curling up and like popping off, take them off. Or if you're not sure, or if it's more delicate, let it dry, you know, but mine is fine. So I'm just going to pop these pieces off of here and let them dry completely. It also, like, these are sort of dry already, not fully, but dry enough. Like if they were still like wet, you know, like water sitting on top of them, I wouldn't touch them because your fingerprints could transfer, you know, and you could move the color around. But these are dry enough that I can just take the pieces off. And then I'll leave them to dry here fully before assembling. And then this way I can rinse my mat off. And I'm actually going to take this little guy, this little eye piece here, that I want to get it a little bit darker. So I'm just going to add another layer of the black soot. Just like that. That's it. So him, I'll just leave there and hope that he doesn't walk away. And then I'm going to rinse this off. I just rinse it in the sink with just warm water. Just rinse it off, and then I just leave it to air dry, and it's good for the next time. Alrighty, I have cleaned everything off, and my pieces are dry. So now it's just a matter of assembling everything onto the base of this little toucan. Super duper simple. Just like so. Got that. Go to his little tail. This is always where a little embellishment wand with its wax tip comes in super duper handy. Like so. We can just add glue to everything else. It all just fits kind of like a puzzle piece, which is also in its own way sort of satisfying. There we go. And this is why I like using liquid glue, because I've got that extra little bit of time to adhere all the little pieces. Move them around as needed. Just like that. And then we've got the piece for his eye. Like that. And then the last little piece like that. And then to just further finish him off, I'll use my white gel pen. And add some little highlights. To our little buddy. Few little dots. And we'll do like that. Yep. There we go. Okay, there's our little toucan buddy. And then for my card front, set him aside for a second. I used the A2 frames wafer die set, LERV, and I die cut pieces of white cardstock with that, because this panel is, I think it's A2, it should be A2 sized. Yes. Yes, in fact, I think this panel might be slightly bigger than A2 size. Let me double check with my paper trimmer. I don't want it to be bigger than my card. Oh, it's A2 sized. Okay, so rather than trim this down, I'm going to adhere, I die cut 3 of these frames from the white cardstock. And I am going to adhere them together to build up the dimension. And because I found that just die cutting, specifically with something like this with the frames, die cutting multiples and adhering them is faster than putting foam strips under here. Because even like the narrow form strips would work, especially if you wanted to make like a shaker element. I am not doing that. It would look cute though, to like do multiple layers of the frame and sandwich a piece of acetate in there. And then add some shaker bits if you really wanted to go all out on a card like this. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, oh, that could be really fun. But I have 5 million other things I need to get done. So I'm not going to do that. But you definitely could. Like, these frames aren't too delicate that you couldn't, but you just have to be a little, either die cut a bunch of them and stack them together to build the dimension, or again, use the little narrow foam strips, or trim down foam strips if you don't have the narrow ones. But like so many brands now, like Simon's got narrow foam strips, like these ones. No, not those ones. I couldn't even show y'all. I don't know where my pack in there. Oh, so these ones, yeah, these little 3D foam strips. Could have used these. So they just come in little packs, and you could just stick those and use that to build up. Like, would totally work. It, you know. But again, I am not doing that today. We're just going to use it, and it's just kind of get like a pop of white to this, and it's also going to literally help frame up. Actually, do I want to take one of these? I kind of think I do. Because then I could pop one up. Yeah, I'm going to take one of these. And I am going to adhere it directly to my background. Just get some glue into place. Like that. There we go. Adhere that one first. Then I'm going to adhere my frame to this background. Just run the craft tacky glue along it. And then I just use kind of my grid mat here. And there we go. And then I'm just going to put something heavy, like my big acrylic blocks, and set those on top and let that dry. While that's drying, I'm going to use, this is the CZ Designs new I See You wafer die. And I die cut it from red cardstock because the red is really going to pop, as you can see, on top of this background. Love. And again, I die cut it multiple times to stack together because, as the great Laura Fedora says, dimension or sings. She sings it. I say it because I'm not going to sing. I won't do that to y'all. When she sings it, it's really cute. I think it's cute. But yeah, dimension is life. So I'm going to stack these. And I think I am going to stick them. I die cut the outline from vellum. I wasn't sure if I was going to use them or not, but because this specific sentiment is in separate parts, like it's not all like connected, I think it's just going to be easier for me to adhere the pieces. Let me move this up a bit so then I can adhere the pieces to the vellum outline. So I have 2 layers of the die cut. And then the third layer, instead of stacking it, I'm going to put the adhesive on the front of it. Just like so. And then I'm going to put this on the back. And I've shown this in a ton of videos. This way it's going to be a little easier for me to adhere this, because then I can put I'll be putting the adhesive on the die cut, like word on the cardstock and not the vellum, because adhesive shows through vellum and it's obvious and it's not pretty and we don't want that. So by putting the final layer on the back, it just makes it easier when it comes time to adhere. Plus, it does pop it up a little bit more, especially if I was adhering this. With this, it's not going to matter because I'm already building up a ridiculous amount of dimension with everything. But this will just make life a little easier. So I'm going to do the rest and I'll be back in a sec. Okay, now we are going to adhere. Just need some adhesive here. We're going to adhere the second leaf cluster. I'm going to offset it from the first one, just like so. So we got that. And then this guy, I am going to pop him up with some foam squares so that he has just extra dimension. Just going to get these pieces into place. Tuck one in right there, like that. Yes. So we'll get the backing off these guys. There we go. And then we're gonna pop him into place. And then for the sentiment, I honestly only need adhesive. Right along these sort of bottom areas. Then go like that. Make sure I have this straight, like that. Yeah, there we go. There we go. So we've got those. And then what I want to do is I've got this pack of easy strips. So Simon Says Stamp has done several pre-printed sentiment packs as well as stamps, and they all coordinate with the Easy Strips Rectangles wafer die set. And I've shown several of the others in past videos. So this is the newest pack, and yeah, these are the reverse ICU Easy Strips, because there's these ones and then there's the ones on white, which, there we go. And the thing with the Simon Says Stamp printed ones, these are printed with toner ink. So this is all this black is toner ink. That's toner ink. You can hot foil these with like a fuse machine or a Mink machine and toner reactive foil. It needs to be toner reactive. I don't do that hardly ever. I don't have the greatest success with it, and it's just not my thing. But other makers have done it, and it looks really cool. But I'm just going to die cut this with the coordinating wafer die here. So just like that. Okay, and then I just got to run this through, and it's going to die cut all of these in one pass, which love so much. Okay. Okay. So There we go. And then all the extra ones, because obviously I'm not going to use every single one, but all the extra ones I'm just going to put with the pack. So the next time I go to use this set, I've already got a whole bunch of them die cut, which is awesome. Can't go wrong with that. I'm going to use, yeah. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to just take any black marker will work. You can use like the Tombow. Memento Tuxedo Black that I always use. That one works too, or just a black alcohol marker. This one's a Copic 110. And I just use that along the edges. That covers up that exposed white cardstock, and it just makes everything just a little bit more finished. So I've got that. And then I'm going to just snip down some of these little foam squares so they're a little more narrow. I'm going to pop those onto this piece. Okay, so I got that, and then I can just pop that into place like that. And then I think I'm going to use those. And like I said, I'm just going to take all these extras and I'm going to stick them in the pack, and then I'll be right back. Okay, I've got my card base, which is Desert Storm cardstock, and it's going to be a top folding A2 card, so 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And I have to dig through this pile because I'm in a mess. I'm going to use the Monstera leaf stamps. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to stamp these onto the inside with the same Lucky Clover ink that I had used on the front of the card. Just get those out of the way. I'll clean them after. Okay. And then stick that one on. There we go. Okay. So that adds a little bit of green to the inside of the card. And then for the sentiments, because these ones are getting adhered on the inside, I'm just going to adhere it flat. I'm not going to bother edging it with the marker like I did with the one for the front, because I don't think it matters on the inside. And then gonna adhere the last little bit like that. There we go. So there's the inside of our card. And then for the card front, we're going to adhere this directly to the card base. So technically, all the stamping I did, I could have done like directly on the card base. However, I prefer doing a separate panel. It's just a little safer that way, because usually I manage to get ink everywhere, you know, and make a big old mess. So I would rather do a separate panel and then just adhere it. So just like that. So we've got that. And then as a final little embellishment, I pulled out, where did I put the die set? Or like the packaging. There it is. This is another oldie but goodie favorite. This is the Mini Hearts Party wafer die that came out literally years ago. Years. It is one of my favorites. So I ran it through with a scrap of the same red cardstock. And I'm going to use that as my embellishments. And plus it just brings in that red. So we can go like this. Like that. And then I can add even one right there. Might add a couple to the inside, we'll see. But yeah, die cutting those from the red cardstock makes for a simple embellishment. I'm gonna stick that right on the frame. I think that's cute. Yeah, I like that. And then yeah, all the extras I always put back into the packaging, which is now, this is a darker shade of red, but yeah, I've got so many, all from like specialty cardstocks, things like that. So, hearts for days. It literally is a heart party. So I've got that, and then I'm going to add some to the inside as well. Just like so. And once I get these adhered, there we go. There we go. So there is our finished card. We got that background stamped with all those leaves in all the different Oxide colors, and then the mini polka dots stamped with the white craft ink and the white frame, Oxide watercoloring on these die sets, our stacked sentiment, and then the die cut sentiment strip. This was a lot of fun. So there it is. And then, like I mentioned in the intro, of course, I'll have links to everything in the description box below the video, so you can check all of that out below if you are interested. And that's it. Thanks so much for hanging out with me and watching. I appreciate all of you, and I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye! Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!